we're spending Valentine's Day together talking about cool ransomware stuff. So we'll give everybody another minute to join. Hello, welcome everyone.
Yes, thanks for spending your afternoon with us today.
All right, I think we should start at 3:01. Does that sound? Give everybody a little minute to join. We're so excited. Hey, Brian. Oh, now I feel like I'm on Facebook Live. I'm like, hey, girl, what's up?
No, I do think we give like a couple minutes just to wait and see if more people trickle in.
Yes.
We'll start officially at 1:02.
Or in Texas,
Or yes,
3:02.
excuse me, 3:02 Central Time.
Different time zones. Hey, Nicole. Maybe this initial one will be a call for all of our friends. We've got some pressure though, because somebody's mom is going to be on this call, so we really got to have our A game on. All right. I'm so excited, and we can't wait to share this recording with everyone. So at the end of the call, I'll probably post this recording on our YouTube channel as well as LinkedIn, if they'll let me do the file that large. So
Yeah, we'll see how large this video file ends up being in the recording.
yeah, it's going to be the most beautiful webinar that Synology's ever done, though. Obviously. Okay, so I guess we will go ahead and get this party started. It's 3:02. Folks who weren't able to join, no worries. We still will be friends with you, but unfortunately, you may not be in the running for chocolates. So just letting you know. Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to be able to share our Valentine's Day afternoon with you. And as optimistic people, Brandon and I are going to talk about really heartbreaking stuff, and then we're going to have fun. So that is the journey. At the end of the call, based on everybody that's attended, I will be sending out an email and posting who the winner is for the delicious chocolates made by my friend and a Food Network superstar. They are perfect. Definitely, you will enjoy them.
Oh, fancy.
I know fancy people. I can't help it. Plus, she makes really good chocolate, and who doesn't want to be friends with someone that lets you sample delicious bonbons? No one. I'm Jessica Allen. I'm with Trinsic Technologies. We are a managed service provider for small to medium-sized businesses. We love working with regulated clients, which is part of the reason that we're putting this webinar on today, because we really want to talk about protecting your business. We have a 24/7, 365 help desk. And bonus, we own our own cloud. So we can talk about that a little later if anybody has questions. My co-host from the West Coast joining us today is Brandon with Synology. Welcome, Brandon.
Hey, thanks, Jess. Glad we were able to put this together for everybody and have a hopefully educational conversation around this ransomware topic and show some ways that we can talk about protecting your data and mitigating risk.
Exactly. So I am going to be the beauty and Brandon is going to be the brains. So all the technical questions, please direct to him. If you have a question during the webinar, feel free to put it in the chat. Brandon, can you tell us a little bit about Synology?
Yeah, so Synology is a software engineering company first, but we are most primarily known for manufacturing NAS devices. We are the leading NAS manufacturer in the world. In fact, if any of you are familiar with PC Magazine, they did an article about a month ago representing the top technology companies in the world. Tesla was number one, and Synology actually came in at number two. We were super pleased to see those results. And we've been deployed, I think, pretty close to 8 million times around the world so far in business environments and home environments alike.
And I just want to add, so Trinsic is very business centric. We love incorporating tools for our clients that are catered and work for their businesses. Synology is really great because it's flexible for business and personal life. So for you CEOs out there or folks who work from home and have a significant amount of critical data for your business, a Synology is a perfect solution for your home as well. So we will start this presentation with my little poem that I wrote, and then Brandon tried writing something funnier. Roses are red, violets are blue. Ransomware can definitely happen to you. First of all, in order to understand how to protect your data, you have to know where it lives. There are some very expected places that it lives, and then not so much. In order to protect the integrity of your data, you've got to know where it sits, how much of it is out there, and what is critical data for your business operations. Brandon, can you walk us through some of the locations that data may live?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we navigate this new COVID era of business and hopefully moving to a post-COVID era, the remote working is definitely not going anywhere. So people are going to continue to work from home. I think the biggest thing where data lives now is obviously you're going to have some kind of centrally located data for your business or your organization where that's stored, whether that's on-prem or in the cloud. And we'll talk on both of those a little bit more in depth here in a moment. But as you have all these remote employees, they probably have a device that they have at home that also carries a lot of critical organization data. Some people are using their phones for a lot of data now, and maybe they're even copying some of that data into their own personal cloud, like their own Dropbox or their own Google account or Microsoft account. So there's a lot of different places that can live, and I think it's important to understand where is your critical organization data, and how do you go about identifying where it's at and being able to protect that.
For sure. So I it sounds pretty scary, to be frank. I have my own horror stories from talking to business owners all the time. How do we, or myself as an end user for my personal life and then also my business life, how do I prevent myself from being the target of a ransomware attack?
Well, Jessica, my question would be, do you have a password?
A few, obviously.
And excuse our dad joke and little pun here, but if you have a password, you are a target. You can potentially be a victim. There is no way to prevent yourself from being the victim of a ransomware attack. In fact, little anecdote, don't judge me, but I happened to get sucked back into the World of Warcraft universe a couple weeks ago, and as I was playing the other night, some people in our guild were running a group task, and one of the guys was actively being hacked. His personal computer was being hacked. They were
Yikes.
manipulating several of the programs he was using at the time. And I really wanted to identify for him that he probably should stop playing and start identifying what data is already being attacked and start quarantining his data to protect his personal information, because the more they were going to be able to capture, the harder it was going to be for him to recover.
For sure. So no place is safe. That's what you're telling me. Even
Well,
the World of Warcraft online.
for sure. I think the biggest thing is knowing that anybody can be a target at any time, but we can take steps to mitigate risk. And the best way to do that is to have your data live in multiple locations and have backups. That you can have different retention policies and be able to recover to a point in time where your critical data lives. Even if that means you lose a little bit of your newer data to potentially avoid paying a ransom. I think a really good example, Jessica, is the pipeline attack that happened last
Yeah.
year. Everybody's familiar with the pipeline. So that ransom, I believe, was a $5 million ransom, if I'm not mistaken. They ended up paying the ransom to get the decryption tool. Now, despite paying the ransom, the decryption tool was incredibly slow, and they had all of their data backed up anyway. So what did they do? They ended up relying on restoring their data to a critical point in time where none of their data was encrypted or infected by, a malicious attack, and they relied on their own backups anyway. So to me, it seems kind of funny to have had backups in place and still pay that ransom.
And a small business really can't afford that risk. I was actually talking to a customer down in Houston. Obviously, a significant amount of data, proprietary information, just huge amounts of data that businesses are collecting. That data is money for your organization. And I think one of the things that kind of gets missed is, yeah, sure, we know all of our data lives on the server in that back room, but what happens when we have a great ice storm of Texas and a water main breaks over that server that's in this very, secure area of the office? Accidents happen. Phishing and attacks happen. In fact, the statistics that we're going to share with you guys are kind of stunning. Small businesses are targeted because they don't have those cyber hygiene policies and procedures in place that really can raise them up from just the bottom liars. Criminals are people of opportunity. If you give them an opportunity, they will take it. So, what we really want to kind of share with you guys today is understanding where your data lives, what important data do you actually need to operate, serve your clients, and how long can you afford to be down? Because data is going to be compromised somehow, somewhere, someday, whether it's an employee who accidentally deleted an entire folder that they had access to accidentally, and 20 years of invoices are gone. Whatever that is, it's important to know where it lives, who has access to it, and how to pull it back quickly. So, as we talk about storage, and you mentioned retention policies, and healthcare specifically, the retention policies are crazy. If you're born at a hospital, they have to save your birth record for 21 years. This is an enormous amount of data. It has to go somewhere. Legally, as a business owner, you really need to be focused on protecting the integrity of your data so that if you do have to go to litigation for any reason, you can easily pull it up. So it's not just operational, but it's also preventative from a legal sense. So walk us through what type of backups are available, how do they impact business using the Synology. Let's kind of talk about that process as it relates to the slide. What applications are you using? Is it duplicate? Is it stale? I think, Brandon, you have some really kind of good feedback on this and maybe a demo for us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, critical to identify where your data lives and what the critical data is for your organization so you can protect that. I think the best policy is to have your data live in multiple locations. The cloud can be part of that. Part of that should be taking ownership of your data and bringing that back on-prem as well so you have control of that. So let's say you have a server in your organization, data can live there. Perhaps your most critical seed data for your business is stored on an external drive and it's kept in a vault someplace so that if you are the victim of one of these attacks or even an accident like Jessica mentioned can happen, you're able to bring that data back to the front and recover that data. So let's say you have data on your employees' workstations. We can protect physical endpoints, PCs, laptops, workstations, physical servers, file servers, and your VM environment. If you are running a virtual environment in your organization, we can protect all that data. There are very simple recovery tools as well so that you can either recover a singular level file in place where it was on an endpoint or simply download it to a new endpoint. You can be able to potentially spin up a VM image of a workstation on a Synology device. If an endpoint has become infected and you need to quarantine that device, hyper backup, Nicole, I'm glad that you've used that and have experience with that. The one solution I am talking about right now is active backup for business, being able to protect those physical endpoints. So you can restore that data directly back to the endpoint as long as it's on the network or you have a VPN tunnel set up. You can restore an entire folder back in place to an endpoint, or you can create bootable media and have a full image bare metal backup of your laptop or your computer, your end station, your workstation, and be able to recover that entire computer onto a new device.
So this is sounding from an operational standpoint, not everyone on the call is a technician. This may be very overwhelming. That's where a partner with someone like Trinsic Technologies really shines. Because what we're going to do is we're going to analyze how your business operates, what your risks are, what your regulatory retention policies are. And we're going to craft a solution and implement it that is right for your business. Um, we were talking a little bit about endpoints just a second ago, and they can be that one point of entry. The pipeline attack that you were chatting about, what always resounds with me is that someone had a VPN credential that was no longer active that was used during that breach. So it wasn't just a ransomware attack, it was a password breach too on that one employee's or ex-employees or contractors' credentials. So those endpoints can be very critical. How we're monitoring them, particularly in a bring your own device kind of ecosystem with a lot of businesses, it sounds pretty overwhelming. And that's when talking about the operational flow of data, understanding where people access it from, how are you protecting those devices, how quickly you catch a breach, I think is one of the biggest things. If you can catch a breach as it's happening, you can quarantine that device, you can push it off the network, you can stop that ransomware attack from gaining traction and encrypting more critical business data. Um, I know that you must all be super curious about these statistics because Brandon and I both, even just during our like casual conversations, like, oh, did you know? Did you know that 70% of businesses will close their doors after a cyber incident? So, Brandon, why don't you share some statistics with us that kind of relate to this conversation?
Sure. So globally, hackers have a lot of power nowadays, and there's a lot of bad actors out there that want to find an easy way to manipulate data and hold somebody hostage to make an easy buck. So there's actually a malicious actor trying to infect an environment every 39 seconds. And 43% of all the cyber attacks that have been registered or notified, right? Not everybody wants to bring forth the fact that they were a victim of a cyber attack. The 43% of those that we're talking about today, those actually target small and medium businesses. And to Jessica's point, generally speaking, small and medium businesses might not have as much of the cyber hygiene or the protective measures in place or just the IT infrastructure to protect their data. And over 75% of the healthcare industry has actually been infected with malware over the last year. Yeah, big yikes. 95% of cybersecurity breaches are actually due to human error. So they delete files or they're click-happy users. And I think that ties directly back into the, creating good cyber hygiene habits and really preparing your employees within your organization on identifying potential phishing emails and quarantining those emails and getting rid of those. Now, I've seen a lot of different statistics too in terms of the total ransomware attacks that are happening. One crazy statistic is that 2021 doubled the total number of ransomware attacks from 2020, and it's expected to quadruple this year in 2022. One of the numbers that I found was that there was 80 million total ransomware attacks in 2021. And that was around the world. Jessica, do you have any idea where the majority of those were based?
Well, because, and I'm not going to be mean, but because Russia has a thing out for us, I'm going to guess that the United States is a pretty heavy hitter in that realm, especially because just the enormous number of small businesses that we have.
55% of the global ransomware attacks were actually right here in the US.
So that means pretty much one of your friends is going to have this situation happen to them. I guess the factor that really is the game changer is, do they know it happened or not? And again, that's where all of the monitoring tools really come into play, partnering with someone like Trinsic so we can, observe your network 24/7. Little things like that can really decrease the potential that you have for being open to significant risk. So what you're telling me and what I'm hearing is that it is definitely a ride or die situation with backup and data recovery. Can you share with us kind of what this slide means? It looks pretty technical. If you can share what that means and like what that means for businesses, I guess that would be very helpful.
So again, we were talking about protecting your endpoints, physical and virtual here. So this would be within a Synology application called Active Backup for Business. So we can do full system restores based on, actually, Jessica, here, why don't you let me share my screen? It'll probably be best to share this solution.
Okay. You got it.
Let me share my screen. Okay.
Seamless. Seamless.
So I am, we can see this okay?
Yeah, I can see
I
it.
am within a demo unit that I have here in the office. And if I go to the main menu, which is this button up here, and I click on Active Backup for Business, it's going to pull up an overview tab. As long as my internet works and it opens.
I am over IT issues today. Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
so here we go. So this is just an overview tab. So you have the various protected devices. Now in this example, I only have backups of a couple PCs, but I can show you kind of how all of these work. On the right-hand side here, I have a backup calendar. A lot of Synology's solutions, Trinsic is partnered with us to utilize our solutions. They're very intuitive and friendly to use. So with this backup calendar, we see these green icons meaning I had successful backup tasks that were completed. These gray ones mean that I don't have a VPN tunnel set up to my endpoint, so when it was not on the network, those backups weren't happening. You also get automatic deduplication within your backup tasks. So there's two backup PCs that I have in here, which you can see as I scroll back to the top. There's two PCs identified. The total backup images were going to be 339 gigs roughly after dedupe. We almost have that. So we're saving on some storage capacity and still protecting our endpoints. So if I go into the PC tab, now in order to back up an endpoint, you need to download a desktop agent on the physical device. So I have that agent configured to basically communicate through the network to my Synology NAS. And then it will import, once the configuration through the agent is set up, you'll see these devices populate and you'll get a device list. So we only did two as a sample. Now if I click on one, I can create a task for that specific unit, or I can go to the task list, because as you import these with the agent, they get a very generic profile for a backup task. So they already have one, but it's not going to run until you get it to go. So if I click on this one and I click edit, I'm going to walk through a wizard of how you create a backup task. Now you can name the task, you can choose whether you want to back up the entire device, or you can choose system volumes or customized volumes as well.
Not
Obviously,
all the
go ahead.
cat pictures and the grandma pictures. You can be selective.
Yes. In a work environment, probably best to back up the entire device so that you have all that critical data being protected. Great to enable data transfer compression so that doesn't suck up too much bandwidth during workflow hours. Our best recommendation is always to schedule these outside of workflow hours. And then you want to enable data transfer encryption as well, so that while this is transferring and traveling through the network, because Synology is a web-based operating system, that a potentially bad actor can't intercept your data transfer while you're backing up. Now I have this particular task set to a manual backup, and I've run it a couple times, which I'll show in a moment, but you can schedule these and you can set it by time. With PCs, you can also back up by event. So as long as they're on the network, anytime the screen gets locked and somebody runs away from their desk, you can get a quick backup done. The first initial backup is always going to take the longest. After that, it's just going to be incremental data. If they sign out of their device, or even upon startup, you can do that as well. And you can customize this option as well, so that you can have forbidden windows of when the backup can't run, so that if you do have limited bandwidth within your environment, you're not impeding your network.
You're not interfering. And I think this is really where patch management and updates and all of these functions that do take bandwidth from your ecosystem. It's important to be strategic about those times so that they don't interrupt the operational flow. So we are a 24/7 shop as for our customers. We do all of these types of updates at night, and evenings as well.
Absolutely.
So non-business hours. This looks pretty simple. I feel like I should not be doing these things, but I feel like I can definitely do these things. So that's really awesome.
Now you can enable a customer retention policy as well. I just have this set since I'm not running a scheduled backup task and I'm not always in the office now, to just keep all the
Mhm.
versions for 30 days. So no matter how many versions I take within a 30-day period, it's going to retain all of those. Now, as you get to day 31, the day one image is going to fall off so that you don't interrupt
Yes.
the capacity of storage that you have. You can also do an advanced retention policy, so you can create a grandfather, father, son policy. And if I show you that really quick and you set the rules, you can create that. So in the healthcare industry, obviously, you'd want to maintain a version for the 21 years for a birth certificate, like you were mentioning. So that would set up a task. I have one run. Another really cool feature about this that I want to show really quick is that if I go back to the device list, and I hit more on a device, I can change the device type. So in a pinch, like I mentioned, you could potentially spin up an image of your device, your workstation, as a VM.
Mhm.
So if you convert this to a physical server, which you can do with a PC image, and it will still retain its custom backup schedule and policies, I can convert it and it will appear as a physical server. So if I hit yes, it's going to change it, and now it will appear as a physical server. From here, if I click restore and I choose, I have two different backup images. That's why there's only two here, but this would depend on your retention policy. I can choose one of these and I can restore this directly to another Synology application called Virtual Machine Manager. That allows you to spin it up as a VM. If I hit next and go through this process, I can set it up and spin up a VM. For sake of time, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole just yet. Let
Yeah.
me go to your recovery portal though.
So let me ask, what you need to spin up and how quickly that amount of data can spin up. Obviously, there's a cost associated with it. So backup, so you can operate, and disaster recovery backup. These are very different operational impacts on a business. True disaster recovery is it hits the fan, someone steals, equipment or destroys equipment in your infrastructure that maintains critical data so that you can go and do your work functions. That's down. You need to be able to spin up another environment to work as if that environment never existed or never went down.
For sure. And I think the
I
critical thing to note here too is that depending on the requirements of being able to spin up a VM on a Synology in a pinch in order to keep your organization up and running while you are recovering from a disaster, it's all
Mhm.
going to be dependent on what kind of CPU and RAM allocations for resources you need for those to spin up and be efficient. And
Yeah.
that'll determine what kind of device you need in your environment as well. So here's an example of my PC being backed up, and I have these two retention points. Now, if I obviously was protecting my organization and backing up my endpoints in my organization on a regular basis, I'd have many more bullet points on this timeline that I could scroll back
Mhm.
to and restore to a given point in time. But you can see my program files and all these things. So for example, if I go to users, it's going to pull up me as the only user. And I can go to documents and navigate to my documents.
Nice.
So for example, I have all these PowerPoints in here. If I wanted to
Mhm.
restore one of these because I accidentally deleted one or one had become encrypted and I needed that critical data, I can hit restore, and as long as my device is on the network, I can restore it directly back to that device. I can even do an entire folder, as I mentioned, or I can simply just download this to an endpoint, a new one, if you needed to quarantine that device completely until you were able to, get a new device implemented into your environment.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Everyone on the call, if you have additional questions about it, definitely let us know. Oh, question. At the end of the call, in just a minute, we will go ahead and review that, Nicole. That's definitely going to be a question for Brandon. So I know I said this was going to be a fun call. I do have a quiz. M365 and Google Workspace automatically back up my email in the cloud. Is this true or false? Go ahead and put your answers down, and we're gonna. Yes, Brian. False. Okay, I have one false. False. Yes. Okay, so I didn't know I was working with experts. This is like when I was at the assisted living home hanging out with the grandmas, and she's like, I know what cyber criminals are. They don't back it up. And briefly, to kind of just review this, because I know we're getting close on time. Um, Brandon has collected some data straight from Google and Microsoft. Basically, what they're telling us is we'll hold your stuff until it breaks, and then we're not going to be responsible. So you better figure out a second plan. Um, that's where Synology can come in. There's other tools on the market that we can use that back up your inboxes as well. But keeping those emails for litigation, super important. So for folks who are in, the attorney space, law office space, this is a pretty big deal. So when data is encrypted, what's happening to those files, Brandon? Can you share a little bit about that?
For example, in a SaaS account,
Mm-hmm.
well, if they've breached your organization through an account, there's no way to know how much more they're going to be able to infiltrate your organization now that they have the credentials for one of your users. They might be able to also capture other users' credentials as well. So you'd need to quarantine those accounts as well. And if you haven't backed up any of those critical files, whether it's data stored in the cloud or an inbox or a contact list, for example, it's going to be really difficult to recover that. So you need to protect those. Now, if we look at that Google Cloud bar graph there and their SaaS accounts, so Google Workspace, for example, you can see in this shared responsibility model that the content and the access policies to your accounts are your responsibility as an admin of your domain within your account with Google. Their only responsibility is to make sure the platform is up and running. Now, if data does get accidentally deleted, it will live in a recycle bin for about 30 days. From there, Google purges it from your account. As an admin, you have 25 additional days to make a request from Google for them to restore that data back to your account. And that data can still take several days to be recovered and restored back in place. So if you actively back up, which is another solution that Synology has for both Google and Microsoft, is another active backup package, active backup for Microsoft 365 and active backup for Google Workspace. You can protect those and you could just roll back to a certain point in time. So if an account was infected, you could just roll back an inbox to a point in time prior to the attack, as long as you were able to successfully identify when that bad actor was infiltrating your account.
So what you're telling me is that it's not cool to keep all your eggs in one basket. Is that what you're saying, Brandon?
Definitely not. In Microsoft on that previous slide, they even go as far as explicitly stating that they recommend you back up the data you store within their platform using third-party services or applications.
Yeah. So, we've all heard, I don't know about you, but my news stream is just populated with outages and breaches and all of these things that happen. Um, when the AWS outage that occurred recently, electronic medical records were impacted. So that meant that clinicians could not access the chart for the patient, all of that data that's in there. So medication allergies, your choice of data that was not accessible. There also, I read on Reddit and several other places, people were not able to access their deposited money. There was bank issues. It was just a slew of problems. So instead of, focusing on the negative Nelly, because I know we're kind of getting into that a little bit, let's talk about some solutions. So Trinsic provides the right technology for your business. Through the Trinsic Insider experience, what we're going to do is really get to know you, understand how you operate, understand what your scaling goals are, how your people work in the field, and then we're going to look at it through a filter of mitigating risk and increasing your revenue. It's kind of our jam. When you partner with an IT company or someone who helps you in your environment, who really understands your business and understands the risks that your business faces, you are always going to come out a superhero. All right, guys, last quiz. And I know it's a little lengthy, but two-ish truths and a lie. I am not a woman of few words, so there's extras in here. So the cost of downtime risen 32% in the last 7 years. 91% of organizations said a single hour of downtime that takes mission critical server hardware and applications offline averages over 300,000. Plus the customer churn, plus all of the other issues that kind of spill from that. The cost of a data breach in 2021 is 4.24 million. Sales price of a home in Austin has risen 33.5%. You've got 99 problems. Customer churn ain't one of them post incident. And then within 6 months of experiencing a breach, 60% of businesses will close their door. Are these, where's the lie? Anyone want to take a gander at this one? Uh-oh, everybody's scared to answer.
No, there's some typing. There's some typing. The last one's the lie.
Oh, okay, Brian. Let's see. Who else is going to answer? 6? Okay. Well, I have a surprise for all of you. They're all true. This is true. Also, everything you read on the internet is true, except don't click on that link because it may be a phishing link. So what can you do about it? Because this is super overwhelming. And listening to Brandon kind of talk about the technical side of things, there's a lot that you have to think about to operate a business successfully today. Really simple. If you want to take some preventative steps on the front end, password manager like LastPass, enable two-factor authentication always, use an enterprise antivirus, and update your applications. Fun tip, and this is free. Did you know that Google Chrome on your desktop does not automatically update if you are like me and have 70 tabs open 24 hours a day and never close them? There is a tiny little bar by your picture that says update needed. And you got to click that and you got to restart your browser. So you're welcome. Don't store your passwords in your browser too. So let's talk about real quick, because I know we're up on time. Why is it important to have a plan? And something that occurs to me as I'm talking to business owners, and I'm really kind of sharing with them what a breach could possibly do to your business outside of the immediate panic. Breach mitigation is really important because companies are going to most likely suffer some sort of incident. It's how you recover from that and the tools that you have built to recover quickly. So like we've touched on, the stages of knowing when a breach occurred, quarantining, find it, remove it, inform employees and customers. This is a really big one for me as a consumer. I decide to spend my money with businesses that I feel I can do business with that work with integrity. All the breaches that I get notifications on, which there are so many of them, even small businesses are really supposed to report ransomware events to the FBI so they can track it. We don't all do that. That I know I didn't actually know that was a thing until I started researching it. So I know lots of small businesses owners out there probably don't know that. But alerting the public, I actually, for the first time ever in the last year, saw a breach report, and I was like, oh man, it's an educational institution. They have kids' information, mama bear, like panic, panic. And I go to their website and I go to their LinkedIn, and I was so impressed because they actually responded, were transparent, and these guys had like a team. So if you want to read about that post in that company, feel free to go to our LinkedIn. and check it out, because I did write a little kudos to them and tag them because I was just so impressed. So, Brandon, what are your personal thoughts now, since you kind of know the dark side of the internet, right? How do you feel about doing business with companies based on how they appear to manage your data securely?
Well, we know a lot of our data is being tracked everywhere we go with all our smart devices and any websites you visit with cookies and things like this. And I'm with you. When I see that there's a data breach with somebody that I do business with, now I have to go back and implement some of those good cyber hygiene habits and go change my password for everything. That becomes a headache for me as a consumer. I don't know about any of you, but I struggle to retain all my passwords for various accounts as it is. So to have to change those and keep a log is challenging and makes it difficult. Plus, I'm gonna lose a little bit of faith that business does have my data integrity at heart
Yeah.
and wants to protect me as a consumer and retain my business. So I'm
Yeah.
more often than not going to move my business to work with somebody else that does want to protect my data and protect the data of their organization and the livelihoods that of everybody that's involved from internally as employees to customers as well.
Yep. And I know we have had such a fun time chatting that we are totally almost at time here. So, real quick to kind of open it up, do you guys have any questions or anything that you'd like us to chat about a little bit more in detail?
One thing I do want to note too, Jessica, is that we are absolutely not knocking the cloud whatsoever. It should definitely be part of your infrastructure for protecting your data. It should be one of the locations your data lives. But to our point previously, it definitely should not be the sole location that you store all of your data. You're going to pay a ton of ingress and egress fees depending on the provider that you're working with. Like the outage with AWS on the East Coast, you don't have any access to your data while the platform's down. And if for some reason they were ever the victim of a ransomware attack, your data just might be lost altogether. So it's best to take ownership of your data again, bring some of it on-prem, store some in the cloud, and maybe put some in a vault someplace, your most critical seed data.
It's all about that diversity. Well, I think, some major takeaways just to kind of recap our conversation. Take ownership of your data and your customers' data. Understand where your data lives. Cloud should be part of the infrastructure. Trinsic has a private cloud as well, so it's off the backbone of AWS, Google, and all the big tech. So diversifying where you store your information, I think very important. And then why it's important to partner with someone who understands the risks, is kind of ahead of the game, learning all of these things, so that you as a business owner, you can do what you're good at, make money, take care of your customers, and compete in the marketplace. Um, Investment into backup strategies is definitely an investment. It's not going to be free. It's not going to necessarily always be cheap, but the alternative is your doors are closed, you lose customers, and you potentially lose trust in your ecosystem, just like Brandon had mentioned. So I will be announcing the winner, and here's some pictures of the delicious chocolates that will be up for winning. Yes, the box is also chocolate. It's so good. It looks like we didn't have any questions. So, oh, Nicole
We
did
just
have a
had the
question.
one from Nicole. Nicole, I'm verifying 100% whether or not we could still back up Macs. I believe with Time Machine you can do backups with Active Backup for Business, but I'll make sure to get that information to Jessica and confirm that 100% for you.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, thanks for hanging out. Everyone, thank you for attending and have a great day.
Thank you all so much. It was a pleasure.
Okay, Nicole, I'll definitely get in touch with you. Bye.